Hello, Rob Watson here for Decentered Media. I'm on a different system. I don't know if what I'm recording is what I'm meant to be recording, but I'll give it a go. I kind of can see myself at the moment. Oh gosh, sorry, the place is a mess at the moment. It's a bit busy. I've had a busy day. I was doing some work with Artworks Alliance, and we were talking about participatory arts, which is always nice. And I wanted to start this video off with a big thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, and the kind of the small the hopefully small uh, number of subscriptions that it really does make a difference, and it kind of gives me a sense that there are people out there who are listening to the podcasts and enjoy them, maybe enjoy them or find them useful or interesting or thought provoking. So that really helps me to kind of gauge a sense of what we can be talking about, and I kind of need to put figure out how to do this in a broader way so it appeals to more people. So what I've done with the funds that I've raised through or been given generously given through Patreon is I've paid for the renewal of the podcasting license for Decentered Media and for Radio Lear, which is the radio station we're kind of kicking along bit by bit. And I've also paid for and renewed the CDSP license, so with Ofcom. So it means that if we get the funds and have applied for some funding, no idea whether that funding will come through, then we can maybe launch the station. So it's an interesting time, and kind of really thinking about how we can use AI and the tools that we've got to be creating some of this content and doing some of the work and making some interesting uh, stuff. So it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear back from you if you watch this or listen to this. Then please do send me a message and let me know how you get on with any of it. Radio Lear, you can find at radiolear.uk, so lear .uk, and Decentered Media is decentered.co.uk. And I'm also on, both are on Twitter or X, Instagram, but I've kind of stopped using Instagram very much. I really can't cope with reels. And also Blue Sky, Threads, and various other ones. Some are more amenable to regular use than others. Blue Sky is a bit dull. Twitter is a bit flaky. It's kind of hit and miss at the moment. But it's that's what we're here to figure out. Really, is how and why we can be using media for different purposes. And I posted a blog, which I wanted to make the main theme of this discussion, is really about um, kind of the democratic deficit that we have with media in the UK. And is a number of people there's the Media Reform Coalition are talking to people at the moment. They're doing work with uh, uh, various parties, asking questions. They're going to go to the Labour Party conference. I think they've just been at the Green Party conference. There's lots of kind of engagement about what makes a more responsive, accountable model of media in the UK. And what prompted me to think about this was the interim report from Ofcom for the local media review, and really just you're kind of very weak on the notion of accountability, very weak on the notion of civic participation. Kind of, I describe it as hand wringing, really, that, oh, it's nothing to do, the decline of media in the UK and local media particularly, it's nothing to do with us, Gov. DCMS and Ofcom, they've presided over this situation, and they've not really ever done anything to put in place any backstops that prevent sliding into, homogenized, distant, consolidated, internationalized content, automated content, synthetically produced content, simulated local content, and they're kind of, they're kind of, it's standing back from the idea. And if you read I posted a blog about this, and I've made some comments through Better Media, which we are making a submission to Ofcom to say really halt this report now and reconsider the whole process and bring a wider range of people in to the debate and the discussion. So people from civic society, people in community groups, people, public authorities, we all need to have platforms of communication. And I have a really simple rule of thumb, and it's I didn't invent this rule of thumb, and perhaps not the person who told me it didn't invent it either, but they passed it on to me, so I'm passing it on to you. And it was Lucinda Guy at Sound Art Radio, who said it's really important that you have somewhere where you can go locally. It's like a bus ride away where you can get involved with your media. And when you think of, the way radio stations, the national networks, and even the supposedly local stations now, they don't have local studios. They don't have local offices. You can't walk up to them and knock on the door. The Leicester Mercury isn't produced in Leicester anymore. The Liverpool Echo isn't produced in Liverpool anymore. You can't walk up to that and knock on the door. I don't know what you have to do to find the people who uh, uh, write articles and news articles for them, because the complaint is from many journalists is that they're sitting at their desks doing clickbait articles from everything that they can get from social media, Google, Facebook, and the likes, and press releases that they get sent. So it's you've got to be able to go knock on the door. I think that's a really important kind of counterweight to the kind of the before everything flies off into the air, and it's like we're all concerned with the high value production stuff of Amazon and Netflix and all that kind of stuff, which is it's great. There's lots of really good programs that I watch and like being part of, and a fan community. Um, but where do I go to take part in the local conversations and discussions and dialogues, and that ability to kind of go and talk and look into the eyes of the person who's presenting the programs or making the editorial decisions, or is kind of making the tea, or is choosing the music. Though you've got it's you want people who live within your community and are connected with your community and have come out of your community, however diverse and interesting that community might be. You need people who have that local knowledge, and the kind of the typical way that our media has kind of evolved now has been to take advantage of networking and systems, and these are all great technologies, but they're really about focusing control on the basis of efficiency. So you lose out. What you lose is the local accountability and the ability of people to interact directly with the people who are making local content in their area. And that's why it's very disappointing about the BBC's decision to really kind of take an axe to a lot of BBC local radio and have these generic regional programs which don't satisfy anybody, because we've not invested in the culture of local media. So the problem is that this leads to a democratic deficit, and it clashes with there's issues around content moderation and free speech, and we've seen Elon Musk really kind of courting controversy, in kind of quite direct ways at the moment, with people not very happy about the way that he's advocating for the platform that he spent billions buying and seems intent on running into the ground. But there are alternatives. You can use other platforms. But they do give people a voice, and they do allow a certain element of freedom of speech. And there is an interesting tension between, socially responsible free speech and absolute free speech. And there's always that element in a democracy that you're not free to shout, run into a theatre and shout fire, for example, is the classic uh, example. However, you're free to block people, and you're free, if you're retweeting people. So I've developed a strategy really, and I'm not maybe getting off the tack in terms of democratic accountability, but I think it's important that we need our own, that the public, citizens, need to develop our own sense of responsible use of these platforms. Why do we wait for government to explain to us how this works? I mean, I always used to use this analogy with students was that when do you become responsible as a driver? And they don't know. Well, maybe when you've passed your test. No, as soon as you sit behind the wheel in a car, whether you've passed your test or not, whether you've had any instruction previously or not, you are responsible for that vehicle, whether it's parked in your garage or whether it's out on the street. You are responsible for that vehicle. Now once you passed your test, but we don't pass a test for using social media. We don't have like a driving test for it, and nor should we. How do you learn how to use social media? Well, you use it from your friend. You learn from your friends. You learn from other people that you see around you. You imitate and copy and emulate what other people are doing. And if other people aren't using it responsibly, if they've discovered the power of antagonism and indignation fueled clickbait, then therefore they're not going to, it doesn't set a good example. But so maybe we as citizens are at fault, are the people who need to start to generate a sense of social responsibility, be out the way. I'm not being virtuous here. I know I use social media, kind of maybe more in the past. I know I use it. Everybody uses social media in a kind of a way that everybody can draw criticism to. But it's like it's like a circular firing squad. Show me somebody show me somebody who's perfect in the way that they use social media, and I'll show you a liar. There's always something there that we do with social media which is can be pulled apart, and that's just life. That's just being human, and we should embrace that. But at the same time, we should be doing things in such a way that we know and we can, we would like other people to treat us in an open, honest, transparent, non-antagonistic way, which is fair and even-handed and equitable and just. So it's got to come from citizens. It's got to come from the users. Now, the problem, I suppose, is this imbalance about automation and all the clickbait accounts and the robotized account, the bots, and the Russian, Chinese robot posting farms, anything like that, and the weighting of the because one of the crucial thing is we don't have any say or any control over how the algorithm is used and developed. So it's like I'm sitting here in Leicester in the UK, and the algorithm for what I see on my social media feed is decided in California, or wherever, San Francisco, wherever it is, and you've got no control over that. So the best I can do, and the best I can say, is kind of okay. Well, I've tried to stop retweeting things. There are some things I do retweet. Um, but write an original comment to go with it. Say something from yourself. Stop letting other people speak for you. Put your own thoughts into it. If you see an article that you like, and you want to share it, post an original thought or comment. If you're doing something that used to be the case when social media first started, everybody complained that it was all so mundane. People showing pictures of their dinner, people going out for a trip, getting on a bus. Show the real life that you live, the neighborhood that you live in, the people that you interact with. You don't have to fake it. It's not a PR exercise. It's just reflect the experiences that you have or we have as individuals, and where that comes from. And I think that's a really important counterbalance to the exploitation and the kind of extractive nature of a lot of what social media platforms, because remember, they're primarily designed to make money, and the way they make money is they manage attention, and they get your attention by promoting and pushing things, stories and articles that primarily rile you and kind of fuel your indignation about something. And you see lots of articles and reports now, which I've kind of figured this out with like YouTube and watching many things now about the American election. And there's a lot of things which people are just focusing on the minutiae of what somebody says and how somebody says something, in order to extrapolate from that the whole kind of contempt that they want to express about a political agenda, whether it's on one side or the other side, because that's what grabs attention. And it's about kind of it's not about being fair. It's not about looking at things in a kind of measured way. It's not about being deep about them. The danger is, and there's again an awful lot of this comes up on YouTube, of people then start to veer down the kind of conspiracy theory route, and that you get involved in complex, deceptive webs type thinking, and so before you know it, you've moved away from your practical experience. So that democratic deficit is something that exists online in the virtual world. But when you walk out of your front door, when you go to your local shops, when you're standing in the bus queue, is your world that virtual environment? Is it the fueled the same way? Now, if we're all on our phones and we're all plugged into our mobile on network devices, then maybe it is, and maybe I'm mistaken, and maybe I'm a bit too old in the tooth to long in the tooth to consider these things properly. However, I think when you actually go out into the world and you interact with people on a face-to-face basis, you get a completely different view of the world, and we've got to remind ourselves that that is the starting point for our civic engagement, public discussion, civic society, not the stuff that's fueled by very clever, very influential marketing and network management administrators. So it's kind of, but we lack, in the UK, we do lack a sense that we don't invest in social cohesion. And part of that, we don't invest in media literacies. A whole sense of kind of, it's handed over to the media studies debate over the years. These are Mickey Mouse courses. Well, they're Mickey Mouse courses because we've not really been um, critical enough. We've not really developed a way to challenge the whole kind of structure and nature of what is. We've gone down to some, to some extent, they're kind of quite philosophical media courses, or quite practical. Um, but they kind of, we're not training people up to, one, learn how the media works through practical experience, which I think is the significant benefit of participation in community media. And two, we're not, asking people to figure out how to be skeptical about these things. So Ofcom's role is to promote the interests of the consumer, the citizen, and then the consumer. And kind of primarily what it does is it promotes the interest of when it comes to media literacies, it promotes the interest of the consumer. There's some work being done, and Sonia Livingston at the LSE does a lot of work around media literacies and children, and it's kind of but that's where we invest in, of what how can we have a well informed um, generation of people come through our schools who have a sense of kind of what how to evaluate the information that they're being presented in a an open way, but through the channels that are enabled through digital media platforms. But I think that needs to be extended. That needs to be something which is a lifelong skill, a lifelong capacity that we all need to invest in. That we are, we're not subject to extortion. Is that too harsh a word to use about the way that we use media and the kind of um, you can think of one or two figures who, Elon Musk comes to mind, Mark Zuckerberg comes to mind, and these kind of figures. But there's plenty of, who runs Google, who runs Apple, who decides the policies that the platforms that are kind of now ubiquitous. Who decides what is appropriate? And I think it was very telling when Keir Starmer said through the disturbances, the riots recently in England, was that you're not immune from the law, and if as individuals, if you've been inciting public disorder, um, then you know you have accountability for that, and you can go. And many people have gone to prison for that. But that also, is something that is the proprietors of these platforms and newspapers also have to be aware of. So I wonder if part of the part of what we have to do is to have improved accountability. Is that in order to run one of these platforms, you have to have you have to live in the UK. You have to have your house here. You have to send your kids to the local schools. Just to make sure that you're not living in some kind of the Channel Islands in a tax haven in the Bahamas or something, but actually you have, as they say, skin in the game about being a UK citizen. So it's, we've got to think about this, and we've got to come up with some kinds of approach that makes this practical, and turns this into something which we can evaluate, and we can look at things that make it work. We can see where it works and we see where it doesn't work, because we've got many challenges, and the breakdown of social cohesion is a significant one at the moment, and there's an imbalance about what kind of stories get discussed and shared, and what kind of stories just it's like, I do look at the Mail Online, and today is the day of the damning report into the Grenfell Tower fire. Completely damning. It's on the front, at the top of the Mail Online, for a few hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours, and it's been replaced by some story about I think it's about Oasis or something like that. And it's that weight, that's a story that should be top of the headlines for a week, 2 weeks, a month, because it's of such a monumental uh, importance. But it's easier for us to get lost in entertainment, in dross, in drivel, and it's down to us, because we read these things. They get our attention, and we turn our attention to them, because the hard stuff, the big stories, the international news, it all just seems a bit too difficult. So one of the things I kind of I'm interested in, would like to kind of explore and see how it works in other countries, is the German Scandinavian concept of Bildung, which is about training your citizens and your society to actually deal with the hard challenges. And the way I understand this from what I've read about it is that the Finnish, in the 1920s, one of the poorest nations in Europe, no natural resources that they knew about at the time, and they had to make a decision. What do we do? How do we develop as a nation? How do we grow? Well, they chose to invest in education, and it was a multi-generational investment. And then now they're at the top of the league tables internationally in terms of capability, for kind of the STEM subjects, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but also kind of world affairs. It's a generation of people who can take a leadership position, because they've not backed away from the difficult conversations and the difficult things that people have to do in a social democracy. And I think that the period of time that we've lived through, which has been 40 years really of easy answers, that you kind of the market will provide for you, or it's just about luck, and your attitude towards entrepreneurialism, your attitude towards productivity or innovation kind of doesn't really matter, because in the UK these days, if you bought a house, great on you. You can just sit and watch the value of that go up, year after year after year. It never seems to go down. It's not exactly a market. And the same with your pension. These things, and anybody. I hear very seldom these days of people who choose to take mid-career breaks and go and do something different, maybe set up a business because they've got an idea, because accepting some very niche and narrow technology based skills, nuclear science or gene science or chemistry, there's it's quite narrow, and they have to be very high value to support the rest of us. But we've hollowed this out. It's like the middle is hollow. So it's the we've got a lot of work to do, and I think being upfront about this, that we won't solve the democratic deficit by simply looking at the top end. And one of the criticisms I've had in the past about some of the approaches towards media democracy has been a top-down kind of approach, waiting for legislation, waiting for people in parliament, waiting for kind of people to come to power to be able to change things. And it's kind of like, well, we need to get involved at the other end. We need to be grassroots organisers, which is why I'm passionate about community media. Is that let's not imitate what we've had in the past. Let's invent something new for the future. and let's come up with some new ideas and test. The technology is changing, and give people, kind of, we need responsibility, we need accountability, but we need capability, and we need to build on civic and social capabilities that are maybe lacking at the moment. So that's kind of my general take. It's you can read a lot more about this on the website. I would really like to have some conversations about this. So I'm going to be trying to get in contact with people to set up some podcasts in the next in the coming weeks, and to have some discussion and debate about these things. I don't think I have any of the answers, but it's nice to talk to people about their other people's insights into these things, and so it'd be great to hear from you as well. So if you're on Twitter, X, sorry, it's at Decentered Media. Likewise, Blue Sky is at Decentered Media, and the website where you can send a message through that is decentered.co.uk. So once again, thank you very much to the Patreon subscribers. And if you could see yourself becoming a Patreon subscriber, I've got to work out what it is that you've got to do to feed this thing. I see it on YouTube videos that I watch where people are, thousands and thousands of Patreon subscribers, and it's like constantly asking people to do it. It really does make a difference if somebody supports this. It just kind of says, keep going, keep investigating the thing, keep looking at things, churning them over, thinking about them, putting your point of view out there, having the conversations. And I think it's really important that we do this. I think there's hopefully we'll get some kind of change is seen and is measurable fairly soon. But anyway, I'm going to now try and edit this because I'm on a different system. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but if you're watching it, then of course it's worked. So until next time, thank you very much.